You don't want to miss this episode where I speak with MVP Eric, who maintains an open source project called EF Core Power Tools. Not only does it do amazing things, but he has a request that you might want to answer. Check it out. So Eric, you maintain an open source project called EF Core Power Tools. Tell us about what that project is.
Well, that project is created to supplement the the EF Core tooling that the EF Core team provides, and it is basically like a visual layer on top of that runs inside Visual Studio as an extension. So you can download it from Visual Studio Marketplace, and right here on the screen we see that it's actually one of the most highly rated Visual Studio extensions overall, and that it has about 300,000. Let me just zoom in a little bit. That it has about 300,000 downloads. So it's quite popular with people that prefer to do things in a visual way. The EF Core teams provide command line tooling to do something similar. This tool has a few more bells and whistles, and it has a nice UI for picking what tables you want to reverse engineer and so on. For this demo, I will quickly go through what is also available on GitHub, our reverse engineering quick start, which will demonstrate that you can, in few minutes, get up and running with a fully functional database context and model classes representing your tables from an Azure SQL database or multiple other databases. Basically everything that is supported by EF Core, this tool, all the providers that are supported by EF Core are supported by this tool. So let's switch to Visual Studio.
As you're switching over, basically what you're going to show us is something that you could do, you're saying with the command line, but you've got this integrated with Visual Studio so that you can point it at a database and reverse engineer it and create the model that you're going to use for EF Core.
Correct, and you get the advantage that you can save the connection that you're pointing to inside the Visual Studio, and you can also save the options that you're choosing, like if you pick particular tables and so on, those options will be saved for you in a file that you can put under source control, and then you can run this tool again with the same selection and the same options that you did the first time.
Okay, so you can basically, as the database changes, rerun the tool.
Exactly.
Cool.
So
Excited to see this.
I have now created a new console app, and this is what the project file looks like. Let's just zoom in a bit here so everybody can see it. This is what the project file looks like. Pretty simple. And I have installed the tool via the extension manager inside Visual Studio. I'll show it here. So inside the extension manager, you can go and search for EF Core Power Tools and then install it from there. Now I will right-click my project and then select EF Core Power Tools, reverse engineer. This will give me an option to create a database connection. I can also create a connection to a DACPAC file, or I can add custom connections for database providers that don't have built-in Visual Studio tooling. I will just proceed with add database connection. I'm using the new Microsoft SQL client driver. It will allow me to connect via the new authentication methods to Azure SQL database, like Active Directory password authentication, integrated authentication, and interactive authentication. This is like the multi-factor authentication against Azure Active Directory. That wasn't possible earlier, but this new provider that's available in Visual Studio 17.5 or newer is now enabling that. So, but for the purpose of this demo, I will actually just connect to a local database, SQL Express database that I have here, and I will pick my Chinook database and click OK, and then the tool will pick up that connection for me. I can choose which EF Core version I want to generate code for, and which EF Core version I actually also want to install in my project. So I will go with the latest and greatest version 7. Hit OK, and now the tool will look at the Chinook database and find out that it contains all these tables. I now have a nice UI where I can actually select and unselect particular tables if I want to, but for the purpose of this demo, I will just select everything. And then we get some nice defaults, proposals for what then the context name should be. Everything that's generated will be put in a models folder. I have a number of other options, and we don't really have time to go into this, but then even if you go into advanced, there's a huge amount of options.
Nice.
All those options are documented in the wiki in the open source GitHub repository.
Great.
So I will just select to install the EF Core provider package. Let's just zoom in here, and I will actually just take the defaults from this dialog to proceed to see how we can do it without actually not really changing any of the options. Click OK, and the tool will then generate the code, and it didn't take very long, took 1 second. So now we can see in Solution Explorer over here, let's just zoom in a bit, that there's a models folder that contains a class for each of the table in our database. And then there's a file here, which is a JSON file that persists the settings that we just chose during running this wizard. And that file you can put into source control, so you are sharing the same settings with other colleagues if you're multiple persons working on the same project.
And I assume when you check that provider, it figures out the right provider based on the database you're connected to?
Exactly. It knows that I'm connecting to a SQL Server database. So while we did that, let's just zoom out. You can see it's actually installed the correct package and the correct version of the package inside the project file just by me selecting to use either a SQL Server or an Azure SQL database. It knows that it should use the Entity Framework Core SQL Server provider and not any other provider. And as I said, this tool supports basically all the major providers that are available for EF Core. So
nice.
Now we have code generated, and I can immediately start interacting with that code. We don't really have time to do that. You have to trust me there. So in few seconds, basically, we can actually generate code and start interacting with our database in a strongly typed fashion using all the power of EF Core.
And you don't have to leave Visual Studio to do it, which is something I know a lot of developers love.
And you don't have to go to any command lines or even terminal inside Visual Studio. You can just do it from the well-known Solution Explorer inside Visual Studio. Yes, I assume that's why this extension, one of the reasons why this extension is popular.
Right, and I know. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, but of course, there's a limitation also that you can only run this if you are actually running on Windows, because Visual Studio extensions are only available for Windows.
Got it.
Yes. So what I'm working. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say we don't have time to go into all the different features, but you also have like some visualization tools and some other helpers as part of that.
Correct. I also have some visualization tools that can kind of draw a graph of either your database or the actual generated EF Core models that you can expect, for example, for debugging purposes, to understand how Entity Framework Core sees your generated model. Or even if you're using code first, you can actually also use that tooling to understand how EF Core is interpreting your code first model.
Nice.
But as you said, we don't really have time to explore those features, but that's also part of this free tool, correct?
Great.
So what I'm working on at the moment, I'm of course maintaining this tool and keeping it up to date with newer versions of Visual Studio. Visual Studio and in particular newer versions of EF Core. But what I'm considering at the moment is to create a cross-platform global tool. So as we said earlier, there already is a command line tool to do this that is supplied by the F-Core tool, but I have listed a number of the features that are also available in this tool that the basic command line tooling that the EF-Core team provides is not capable of supplying. And therefore, I think there's a call it business case for doing this for me. And I have a lot of users that have asked for this because they're on Visual Studio Code or Visual Studio for Mac or other platforms. So this basic in functionality I will first expose as a command line tool, and then if somebody wants to do a UI on top of that, definitely I would work with them to get that implemented. But I'm not capable of doing that myself because that's basically beyond what I can cope with work-wise and also ability-wise. So
Sure.
I have this issue here on GitHub that I hope some of the viewers would like to go in and maybe have a review of, because this is where I'm proposing what the user interface to this tool should look like. And it will be a very simple command where you specify the connection string and the name of the provider. Unfortunately, with the tooling here, I can't really detect the provider just based on the connection string.
Sure.
Because the connection string keywords are the same for multiple database systems. And then I have also invented a new JSON configuration file format that's hopefully that you will be able to modify in order to change options for the tool. So I hope you will be able to go in and provide some feedback for this, and then I will get to work on this tool and make people that are on other platforms or would like to get the functionality even on Windows, but from a command line made available to them.
That sounds great. So basically an open source tool that helps you with your EF Core workflow and the opportunity to come to the repo, take a look at the issue, vote if you support the issue, and provide feedback so that Eric knows exactly how to deliver what you want in a cross-platform way. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Eric.
Hey, I'm Kadesha, and I'm here to let you know that May is Maintainer Month. At GitHub, we're celebrating maintainers all month long by providing a place to gather, share, and learn together. Come join our month-long events and activities to be a part of the celebration and share your story with other maintainers and join the maintainer community. We have workshops, podcasts, conferences, meetups, and much more planned for you to enjoy all month long. Go to maintainermonth.github.com to see and create your schedule and be a part of the celebration. See you there!